There are countless games out in the world right now that you can play to your heart's content, but sometimes what you really want is a game that's never going to be made. Here's another batch of video games that could have been great, but we'll probably never get to play them. World of Darkness was to be an MMO based on the extremely popular RPG setting of the same name, a modern environment rift with supernatural creatures hidden among human beings. CCP Games, the company behind the super successful EVE Online MMORPG, spearheaded the project as a way of bringing the IP into the online space with all of the politicking and backstabbing it deserved. Unfortunately, it turns out there was never as much of a game to play as was shown off. CCP would frequently pull developers off of World of Darkness and onto EVE development for short bursts, and the game's extremely slow turnaround meant consistently throwing out the game's alpha clients and starting over from scratch. Combine that with CCP's failures to budget, and the game went dark for good in 2014. The original Prey turned some heads for its unique take on the FPS genre, unique weaponry and unique level design combined with the ability to split into spirit to explore and solve puzzles. The sequel, Prey 2, promised more of the same: novel experimental layouts, novel weapons, and a whole new set of targets to hunt. Alas, it was not to be. While Bethesda signed on to be the publisher, the original development studio was moved off of the project, and rumors swirled about the game's delay several times before it was finally canned in 2014. The Bethesda managers responsible claim that it was never up to snuff. Alan Wake was a novelty when it was released in 2010, a game with a strong focus on interaction that didn't just involve shooting things. It was a successful game published by Microsoft, and there was every reason to expect a sequel was forthcoming, but time and circumstances altered its fate. Microsoft began working with Remedy, the team that developed Alan Wake, to start working on Quantum Break, which quickly took over priority of Alan Wake 2 and wound up using many of the same basic ideas. While the sequel itself isn't canceled, it has been postponed and possibly for an indefinite period of time. Agent was a title announced as a new stealth action game back in 2007 as a PlayStation 3 exclusive to be developed by Rockstar. Set during the Cold War, the game would see players taking part in the endless backstabbing, counter-operations, surveillance, and maneuverings of the Cold War-era intelligence operative. So why aren't you playing this game right now? Because it's cloaked in more secrecy than the main characters could dream of. The title has had virtually no new information surface since its announcement, and while the official line is still that it's being developed, there's nothing to be shown for it. After 9 years, it seems quite likely that this game isn't simply sneaking up on anyone, but has been quietly left for dead. Silent Hills seems like the absolute apex of horror gaming, a retooling of the Silent Hill franchise, traditionally one of the greatest among the horror series. Helmed by the famed Hideo Kojima and directed by Guillermo del Toro, the famously creepy demo was released on the PlayStation Network to overwhelmingly positive response, and everyone was ready to sit down, start playing, and get terrified. Alas, internal politics killed the game, with Konami forcing Kojima out of the company and the partnership with del Toro evaporating along with the shift. The result was a game with its creative minds and focus gone, and the game died off to only exist within our nightmares. Blizzard Entertainment is, as we know, the studio behind World of Warcraft. When you hear that the studio is working on another MMO, you sit up and pay attention. The enigmatic Project Titan was never named, but people heard rumors about it and eagerly tracked its development, waiting for more news on the company's second MMORPG. Again, it was never to happen. After years of development, Blizzard canceled Titan in 2015, declaring that the game's ideas never coalesced into fun gameplay. Several of the mechanics behind it wound up getting moved to Overwatch, but Titan itself is gone. Rainbow Six Patriots was to be a first-person anti-terrorism shooter, which in all of itself isn't terribly surprising based on its name, but the game turned heads when it was first announced in 2011 by pitting players against domestic terrorists fighting against economic disparity. Any discussions that might have been generated were cut short when the title was canceled and replaced by Rainbow Six Siege in 2014. The decision was stated to have nothing to do with social controversy and everything to do with using the latest technology and making the newest games. War never changes. unless it's going online. Yes, Fallout Online was going to bring the long-running Wasteland Wanderers into an online sphere, giving players a chance to shoot through Deathclaws, ghouls, robots, and mutants along with other players worldwide. It seemed like a slam dunk when it was announced in 2007. The game's main problem wasn't gameplay though, it was interplay. The company's insolvency led to the selling of the Fallout franchise to Bethesda, and while a legal back and forth battle was waged over the rights to make an online game, ultimately interplay folded. Litigation really never changes. Brothers in Arms Furious 4 is not the fourth installment to the series. No, it was billed as a game that allowed you to more or less play out Inglourious Bastards in video game format, leading a crack squadron of misfits on a secret World War II mission to kill Hitler. Developed by Gearbox Software, it seemed like the sort of oddly irrelevant but engaging game that the studio is known for perfecting. Unfortunately, a madcap and tongue-in-cheek adventure is out of line with Brothers in Arms having a more level-headed historical approach. Gearbox spun the game off from the Brothers in Arms IP, then ultimately cannibalized the ideas from the game into its new IP, Battleborn, which serves as a cooperative shooter MOBA RPG sort of thing. So much for another chance to kill digital Hitler. Did you ever wonder about Darth Maul's backstory? Would you play an entire game with his spinning lightsaber? Because that's what Battle of the Sith Lords was all about, and it would have been something else to see, combining stealth and action to tell the story of Maul's past before the events of the Phantom Menace. If you wanted to play Arkham Asylum with a lightsaber and Force lightning, this would have been it. Of course, there was one thing even the Force couldn't control: the wholesale acquisition of Star Wars by Disney. The result disrupted several games in development, and Battle of the Sith Lords was just one of them. The developers are still hoping that the game can be salvaged in some form now that EA has an exclusive license to the Star Wars games. You'll most likely never get to play any of these games, but some of their ideas do live on. Which of these games would you have wanted to play most? Are you looking for more games that you'll never get to play? Make sure you check out Volume 1 of this series. Let us know your thoughts down below in the comments, and as always, enjoy the game. Just make sure it's one that's been released.